I said her growling was cute. Now she growls. Every time I enter a room, reaches its dramatic peak when Lionel stands before the imposing Firaxi High Council, boldly invoking their ancient laws to defend his bond with Millie. Against all odds, he transforms what seemed like cultural transgression into recognized legitimacy, proving that respect and courage can bridge even the most formidable interspecies divides. The cargo bay of the starship, Vanguard's Reach, smelled of engine oil and sweat. Lionel adjusted his standard-issue recon gear, checking each compartment with practiced efficiency. The weight of the Alliance insignia on his shoulder felt heavier than usual. Their mission was simple: investigate an abandoned Firaxi listening station, confirm its decommissioned status, and report back. Standard procedure, minimal risk, at least on paper. Behind him, in the equipment line, stood Millie, a towering Firaxi beast woman with vibrant purple fur that caught the fluorescent lighting. Her massive frame dwarfed Lionel's human build, her claws capable of ripping through standard hull plating. Those luminescent blue eyes seemed to track every movement in the room. A service bot whirred past, stuttering in its programmed path as it attempted to stack ammunition crates. The machine lurched, dropping a case with a metallic clang that echoed through the bay. Millie's reaction was immediate. A deep, primal growl emerged from her throat, vibrating through the cargo bay with enough force that Lionel felt it in his chest. Her fangs gleamed as she bared them at the malfunctioning machine. "Stupid metal scrap!" she snarled, moving to right the fallen crate with one powerful arm. The growl lingered in the air, and without thinking, Lionel blurted out, "You know, your growl is kind of cute." Instant silence fell across the cargo bay. Several crew members turned, expressions ranging from shock to amusement. Someone coughed. Another failed to suppress a snicker. Lionel felt his face flush hot. Millie stared at him, ears flattened against her skull, those blue eyes widening slightly. Then she simply growled again, softer but unmistakable. I mean, it's impressive," Lionel stammered, suddenly very interested in checking his equipment again. "Efficient, for intimidation." The moment passed as the crew returned to their preparations. But something had shifted. Over the next 3 days, every time Lionel entered a room where Millie was present, she would emit that same, low, vibrating growl. Not at anyone else, just him. The crew's focus gradually shifted from routine mission prep to the bizarre dynamic developing between the human recon officer and the Firaxi warrior. Captain Algira, a weathered human veteran with a reputation for brutal efficiency, called the final briefing 12 hours before planetfall. "We're approaching the defunct listening station in the Karasit system," she announced, her voice crisp as she gestured to the holographic display. "Intelligence suggests it's been abandoned for 3 standard cycles, but Alliance protocol requires confirmation before we update official records." Her gaze swept the assembled team before landing on Lionel and Millie, who stood at opposite ends of the briefing table. "Officer Lionel, you'll lead the recon team. Millie will accompany as your partner for this operation." Lionel nodded professionally, though his stomach tightened. As the crew filed out, Millie passed him and growled, low and deliberate. Captain Algira raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The shuttle's descent through the atmosphere of Karasit 4 was rough, buffeting through layers of icy cloud cover. Outside the viewport, a barren landscape of blue-white ice stretched toward the horizon, broken only by the angular silhouette of the Firaxi outpost. Lionel gripped the harness straps, trying to ignore Millie sitting directly across from him. Silent but alert, those glowing eyes fixed on him. When they touched down, the external temperature sensors registered -70 degrees. Lionel sealed his thermal suit, checked his blaster charge, and nodded to Millie. They stepped out into venomous cold that bit through even their insulated gear. The outpost loomed before them, a jutting monolith of dark metal against pristine ice. They approached the main entry, where Millie pressed her clawed hand against an ancient biometric panel. After a moment's hesitation, the massive door slid open with a groan of disuse. Inside, the corridors were bathed in emergency lighting, casting long shadows as they proceeded deeper. Lionel scanned the walls, noting the distinct Firaxi architecture, organic curves interspersed with sharp angles, a reflection of their dual nature as both warriors and artists. "Hold!" Millie commanded suddenly, gesturing toward a wall covered in glyphs that glowed faintly under her touch. "These are bond rights." "Bond rights?" Lionel stepped closer, scanning the symbols with his datapad. "Firaxi courtship and dominance rituals," she explained, tracing a clawed finger over the intricate patterns. This station was more than a listening post. It was where warriors once came to be tested for compatibility. Lionel's device translated the symbols. Strength meets strength. Voice claims voice. The worthy shall answer the call. "These rituals," Lionel asked, an uncomfortable suspicion forming. "What exactly do they involve?" Millie's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "When a Firaxi warrior finds a potential mate worthy of respect, they issue a call, a growl that says, 'I see your strength, and I offer mine in return.'" The realization hit Lionel like a blast of the planet's frozen air. What he had mistaken for aggression had been something else entirely, an elaborate declaration of interest, of potential mating. Before he could process this revelation, a shadow moved at the edge of his vision. Lionel spun, blaster raised, just as two figures detached from the darkness. Firaxi rebels, their distinctive blood-red markings identifying them as members of the Separation Front, an extremist faction opposed to the human Firaxi peace accords. They wielded energy blades that hummed with lethal promise. "Alliance dogs," one spat in accented standard. "This sacred ground is not for your kind." Millie moved with startling speed for her size, becoming a blur of purple fur and deadly precision. She growled, not the soft rumble she had directed at Lionel, but a battle cry that echoed through the abandoned corridors. Her claws slashed through the air, catching one rebel across the chest and sending him sprawling. Lionel dropped to one knee, taking careful aim with his blaster. He fired twice, catching the second attacker in the shoulder, spinning him around. Millie capitalized on the opening, driving her opponent back with a flurry of strikes. The fight was brief, but intense. As the last rebel fled, disappearing into the station's labyrinthine depths, Millie stood breathing heavily, her fur matted with sweat despite the cold. She turned to Lionel and issued a soft growl, different from before, almost approving. Lionel's heart raced, partly from the combat, partly from the unspoken connection that seemed to hum between them. He activated his comlink. "Outpost perimeter secure, Captain. We've encountered resistance, Separation Front militants. 2 engaged, 1 wounded. Both retreated deeper into the facility." "Acknowledged," came Captain Alira's terse reply. "Proceed with caution. Backup is on standby." As they continued their exploration, Lionel found himself hyper-aware of Millie's proximity, of the graceful power in her movements. They cataloged the station's abandoned technology, recorded the status of its defensive systems, and confirmed its decommissioned state, all while maintaining a vigilant watch for the rebels. In the central control room, Millie paused before a massive display showing Firaxi constellations. "My ancestors believed that bonds formed under the right stars would endure any hardship," she said quietly. "And what do you believe?" Lionel asked, surprised by his own boldness. She turned those luminescent eyes on him. "I believe strength recognizes strength, regardless of form or origin." Then she growled, soft and deliberate. This time, Lionel didn't look away. The return to the Vanguard's reach was met with grudging praise from Captain Alira. "Efficient work," she noted, reviewing their data. "Though I'm concerned about rebel presence in what should be abandoned space." Later that cycle, As Lionel was completing his report in the ship's archives, he received an encrypted message. Unusual Firaxi transmissions detected from within the ship. He moved immediately to investigate, following the signal to a restricted section of the archives. There he found Ensign Teller, sprawled on the floor, dead, blaster char marks too clean for a struggle, too precise for panic. A professional hit. "Lionel!" Millie's voice came from the doorway behind him. She approached, cautiously, nostrils flaring as she scented the death in the room. "Someone's transmitting to the rebels," Lionel said grimly. "And they're covering their tracks." A soft whirring drew their attention to a small drone hovering in the corner of the room, its recording light active. Before they could react, Commander Rash appeared in the doorway, blaster drawn. "Step away from the body," he ordered, his voice cold. "Security has been alerted to a Firaxi attack on a crew member." Realization dawned on Lionel. "You're framing Millie. You're the spy." Rash's smile was thin. "Who would believe otherwise? The Alliance fears what it doesn't understand. And your pet monster is the perfect scapegoat." The drone was still broadcasting, sending images that would damn Millie to the Firaxi High Council as a traitor to the peace accords. Lionel lunged, not for Rash, but for the drone, smashing it against the wall with his datapad. Rash fired, the blaster bolt sizzling past Lionel's ear. Millie moved with liquid grace, her growl now a full-throated roar as she closed the distance to Rash. Together, they subdued the commander, Lionel disarming him while Millie pinned him with her considerable weight. The ship's security team arrived moments later, led by Captain Aliera herself. The evidence was damning. Rash's encrypted communications, the drone's transmission pattern matching the signal to the rebels, residue on his hands matching the distinctive energy signature of the blaster that killed Ensign Teller. But victory was short-lived. 3 days later, a summons arrived from the Firaxi High Council. Millie was ordered to appear before them to answer for her actions, specifically, her apparent claiming of a human mate in direct violation of traditional protocol. "They can't be serious," Lionel argued as they prepared to board the Council's diplomatic vessel. "We're partners, yes, but—" "In their eyes, I have chosen," Millie said simply. "My Growls marked you as mine before witnesses. Now, I must either formally claim you as bondmate or renounce you and accept exile from leadership." The council chamber was imposing, a semicircle of elevated seats where 9 Firaxi elders sat in ceremonial armor. Their fur ranged from midnight black to stark white, signifying their various clans. At the center sat High Elder Corvin, his golden eyes sharp as he regarded the odd pair before him. "Millicent of Clan Araxis," he intoned, using Millie's formal name. "You stand accused of forming an unsanctioned bond with a human, circumventing the trials of worthiness, and dishonoring your clan's right to approve your mate. How do you answer?" Millie stood tall, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I answer that I have found one worthy of respect, whose strength complements my own." Murmurs rippled through the assembled Firaxi. Elder Corvin leaned forward. "And does this human understand what he has accepted? Does he comprehend the obligations of the bond?" All eyes turned to Lionel. In that moment, standing before the might and tradition of an alien culture that could easily destroy him, he made his choice. "High Elder," he began, summoning every scrap of diplomatic training. "I invoke the right of proven worth under the 13th scroll of Araxis." The chamber erupted in shocked growls and hisses. Elder Corvin's eyes widened marginally, the Firaxi equivalent of open-mouthed astonishment. "You claim knowledge of our most sacred laws?" the elder asked, his tone dangerous. "I claim respect for them," Lionel corrected. "The 13th scroll states that a warrior who saves the life of another in battle has proven their worth beyond any ritual test. Millie and I have fought back-to-back against enemies who would destroy the peace between our peoples. We have shed blood together and for each other." He stepped forward, voice strengthening. I further invoke the Treaty of Shared Skies, Article 7, which recognizes the legitimacy of cross-species bonding when both parties freely consent. The silence that followed was profound. Then, slowly, Elder Corvin nodded. The human speaks truth according to our laws, he conceded. Though unprecedented, we find no grounds to demand a blood duel or formal renunciation. He fixed Millie with a stern gaze. Your bond is recognized, Millicent of Araxis, but know that this union places upon you the responsibility of representing both our peoples with honor. As they departed the council vessel, Lionel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. That was intense. Millie's growl was soft, almost a purr. You studied our laws. I thought it might come in handy, he admitted, though I didn't expect to need them quite so dramatically. Their reprieve was short-lived. 2 weeks later, an Alliance escort convoy was found massacred at the edge of Firaxi space. The ship's hulls had been branded with a single Firaxi word: imposter. Evidence pointed to a coordinated attack using ancient clan codes, specifically codes belonging to Norik, Millie's brother, who had been exiled years before for opposing peace with humans. The message was clear. He was using this attack to discredit Millie's unprecedented bond, portraying it as a betrayal of Firaxi values. He always resented that I was chosen to represent our clan in the Alliance, Millie explained as they reviewed the attack data. Now he sees an opportunity to reclaim what he believes should have been his. Lionel spent days poring over transmission logs, weapon signatures, and intelligence reports. Slowly, a pattern emerged: encrypted signature loops, weapon manifests that didn't match official records, a network of rebel alliances all arranged by Norik. We need proof that will satisfy both the Council and Alliance Command, Lionel said, organizing the evidence on his datapad. Something irrefutable that doesn't require combat or bloodshed. The neutral Council station orbiting Proxima Centauri served as the venue for their presentation. Representatives from both the Firaxi High Council and Alliance Command were present, their faces grim as Lionel methodically laid out the digital trail, linking Norik to the attacks. The signature patterns are unmistakable, he explained, highlighting a sequence of code. This is Norik's personal encryption key, modified but still recognizable when you know what to look for. These weapon deployments match his known tactical preferences. And here, he brought up a final piece of evidence: a recorded communication between Norik and a Separation Front leader, discussing their mutual benefit in discrediting cross-species cooperation. The evidence was overwhelming. The Firaxi elders, bound by their own laws of proof and truth, stripped Norik of his remaining rank and privileges. More importantly, they reaffirmed their recognition of Lionel and Millie's bond as legitimate. A victory achieved not through combat or bloodshed, but through meticulous investigation and legal procedure. As they returned to the Vanguard's reach, their partnership had evolved into something neither culture fully understood, but both had come to respect. Captain Aliera, pragmatic as ever, recognized their effectiveness and assigned them to lead a new initiative: mixed species units designed to leverage the strengths of both humans and Firaxi. Your peculiar bond seems to work, she noted dryly. Let's see if you can teach others to find the same balance. Under their joint command, the program flourished. Human analytical skills paired with Firaxi instinct and strength proved a formidable combination. Their success became a symbol for the Alliance, proof that understanding could bridge even the widest cultural divides. Years passed. The Vanguard's reach completed its mission. Lionel and Millie, having served with distinction, chose retirement on a temperate frontier world where the boundaries between Alliance and Firaxi space blurred. Lionel wrote training guides for cross-species units, while Millie cultivated the land, her connection to growing things as strong as her warrior heritage. One morning, as golden sunlight filtered through their home's windows, Lionel entered the kitchen where Millie was preparing a meal, as had become their ritual over the years. She growled at his entrance, a sound that had evolved from that first cargo bay encounter to something rich with shared history. Lionel smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. "Still cute," he said simply. Millie's growl softened into a purr, an intimate sound, reserved only for him. In that moment, in the home they had built together, it was both an acknowledgement of their past and a promise for their future, a reminder that understanding, respect, and choice had forged a bond stronger than either of them could have imagined. In Alliance training academies, new recruits still studied their story. On Firaxi homeworlds, young warriors learned that strength came in many forms, and in the spaces between cultures, others found inspiration to bridge divides that once seemed insurmountable. But for Lionel and Millie, it had begun, and would always remain, with a growl that someone had the courage to call cute. The end.